At an industry awards show, my father-in-law toasted. Some climb the ladder, some just hold it. I grinned politely. 20 years later, after orchestrating financial collapse after collapse, his last property was seized, his honorary degrees were revoked, and his portraits were taken down from every institution that once honored him. His descendants now live in anonymity, telling no one who they are. I'll never forget the sound of that room laughing at me. Not with me at me. It was the 2005 Minnesota Commercial Real Estate Awards. Black tie affair, open bar, 5-course dinner. The kind of event where the room smells like old money and cheap cologne. I was there because I married into the Ellison family, and more specifically, into Gordon Ellison's world. Gordon was a big deal. Real estate tycoon. Philanthropist. Board member on 3 universities. Gave so much money to the city, they named a wing after him at St. Jude Hospital. People called him the kingmaker in local politics. If he didn't like you, good luck getting a permit or a loan approved in the next 5 years. He was the kind of man who'd buy your company just to fire you from it. That night, he was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. He gave a speech full of the usual "we worked hard, we built communities" kind of crap. People nodded, clapped like they meant it. Then he raised his glass, looked right at me across the table, and said, "Some climb the ladder of success, and some just hold it steady while others go up." Laughter. Stephanie, my wife, touched my arm like I might do something. I just smiled. I smiled like it didn't hit. Like I didn't hear the implication. The room saw me as the quiet son-in-law who married up, who was lucky to be included. I was an architect. Talented, yeah, but with no firm. No capital. No legacy. My job came from one of Gordon's business buddies, a favor he reminded me of more than once. I lived in a house Gordon helped us buy, drove a car he co-signed on. I was holding the ladder. But here's the thing, no one in that room knew I never forgot insults. Not real ones. Not the kind that humiliate you in front of people you're supposed to call family. I didn't blow up. I didn't raise a glass back, or fire off a snarky reply. That's not my style. I just smiled. Then I started thinking. The divorce came 3 years later. Stephanie said I was too cold, too focused on resentment. Maybe she was right. But she never asked what I was building in my head. After we split, I left Minneapolis. I moved to Kansas City, dropped off the grid, changed my last name to my mom's maiden name, Hallbrook. Started over. No one from the Ellison side ever called. Gordon probably assumed I'd crawl back or fade away. Instead, I went to work. I took a job inspecting structural assets for a liquidation firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was strategic. I got inside knowledge on how commercial properties collapse not physically, but financially. Who defaulted first? How bad debt rotted from the inside. How to watch a building die from a spreadsheet. Meanwhile, I watched Gordon. He had built his empire fast. Too fast. Everything he touched was mortgaged to hell, spread across LLCs that were as shallow as a puddle. The shopping centers in Detroit Lakes. The strip malls in Des Moines. The revitalized condos in Milwaukee. Every time he refinanced or borrowed against a new property to pay off another, I kept track. I waited. I didn't need revenge that year. Or the next. I was playing a long game. In 2011, the first crack appeared. A multi-use development in Cedar Rapids defaulted. The contractor bailed mid-project. The lender sold the debt. Guess who bought it? That's right. Under a shell firm I created, I bought the note. Quietly. Cheaply. I didn't foreclose, not yet. I just watched. I bought 3 more over the next 5 years. Each time one of Gordon's investments hit trouble, I was there. Through dummy corporations, I offered to buy debt or underwrite it with toxic terms. I used his own methods against him. No one suspected me. I was a ghost. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. By 2017, I had control of 6 of Gordon's key properties, not the flashy ones that made the papers, but the ones that held up his empire. The support beams. The collateral he leaned on whenever cash got tight. Strip malls, mid-range apartments, aging office spaces that looked stable on paper. I watched as he doubled down. He launched a senior living project outside Madison. Another in Rochester. He was chasing federal subsidies, tax breaks. It looked brilliant on the surface, a safe investment. What he didn't know was that I had quietly backed one of the contractors he hired for the job. And that contractor did exactly what I paid him to. Delay, overspend, and let permits lapse. Gordon had to cover the costs himself. He refinanced one of his older properties to do it. That refinance? I bought the note the minute it hit the secondary market. By 2020, COVID hit. That was my window. Gordon's rental income collapsed. Tenants walked away. Shopping centers went dark. Federal protections made evictions harder. And suddenly he couldn't make loan payments on properties he barely owned outright. That's when I pulled the trigger. One by one I called in the debt. Defaulted him. No warning.
No negociasten.
Just cold legal notices sent to his attorneys. His lawyers scrambled. They had no idea who was behind the LLCs. Gordon tried to refinance again, but I had poisoned the well. I sent anonymous tips to local banks showing the mess in his portfolio. Lenders started freezing him out. His name no longer meant safe bet. It meant over-leveraged liability. By 2021, 5 properties went into foreclosure. Not just any ones, with tenants with tax liens, with unpaid vendors. It hit the news. Ellison Group facing liquidation talks. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about legacy. And that was always my goal. Gordon went on TV. Blamed predatory lenders and bad actors in the market. He said the business climate had turned against old builders. He even tried playing the victim. But then the IRS stepped in. See, one of those properties had years of financial irregularities. I'd made sure of it by quietly slipping documentation of fake invoices and inflated appraisals to a former employee who got fired from the Ellison Group. He turned whistleblower. Suddenly Gordon was under investigation. Honorary degrees? Suspended. They didn't want their university names tied to a man facing fraud inquiries. His face disappeared from the donor wall at St. Jude. The city renamed the Ellison Pavilion to North Campus Center. And I was just getting warmed up. His son, my ex-brother-in-law, got denied for a board seat at a local bank. Why? Because I sent anonymous background packages detailing his connection to the lawsuits now piling up. His daughter Stephanie had remarried a tech guy. Their kid got into a private school. I made sure the school knew her maiden name. They suddenly reassessed financial aid eligibility. Quietly dropped them from their admissions list the next year. I didn't touch them physically. I never called. Never wrote. I just made it impossible for them to carry the Ellison name with pride. They stopped putting it on applications. They stopped using it altogether. Gordon sold his mansion in Wayzata in 2023. Quiet listing. Barely above market value. The local paper ran a small piece on it, but didn't mention him by name. The man who once toasted a ballroom full of suits with some climbed the ladder now lived in a gated rental outside Duluth, off a private lane, completely alone. They took down his portraits from every hallway, every donor wall, every bronze plaque. He still doesn't know it was me. By the end of 2023, Gordon was radioactive. No one in real estate wanted to touch him. His company, once a titan across the Midwest, was now a shell of tangled lawsuits and unpaid contractors. He tried to go silent. No more public statements. No more interviews. But I wasn't finished. This was never just about money. I didn't want him broke. I wanted him forgotten. He still had one last piece of pride: the Ellison Foundation. It was his last public face. The one that gave scholarships to local kids, funded community events, donated to city projects. It was the last place that still bore his name without shame. So I went after it. First, I uncovered a donor match scam from a decade ago. The foundation had counted double donations for tax credit purposes. Easy to miss. Hard to defend once exposed. I passed it along to a journalist who'd once been snubbed by Gordon at a gala. She tore into it. Front page of the Star Tribune. Audit uncovers irregularities in Ellison Foundation giving. The city council voted to pause their partnership. Schools stopped using the name. Another anonymous tip landed with the state attorney general's office. They opened an inquiry. Gordon issued a statement saying he wasn't aware of any wrongdoing. But the board, half of them old friends who now saw a sinking ship, voted to remove him. The foundation was renamed within the year. His last name now only existed in closed court files and unpaid invoices. And still I wasn't done. I started contacting people Gordon had crushed in the past. A small contractor he bankrupted in 2009. A woman whose permit he blocked out of spite. A city clerk who got fired after refusing to fast-track one of his projects. I didn't just reach out, I helped them. Quietly. I funded lawsuits. I backed businesses. I used what I'd learned in 20 years of watching Gordon to reverse his tactics and give his victims the weapons he once held. One by one they took shots. Legal ones. Public ones. It was like watching a dam burst. The press called it the fall of a real estate dynasty. What they didn't know was that it was never a dynasty. It was a house of mirrors, and I'd spent 2 decades breaking every last one. Stephanie reached out to me in early 2024. First time in years. Sent a short message. Did you have anything to do with this? I didn't answer. She followed up. You've destroyed everything. My dad is losing his mind. Still I said nothing. What was I supposed to say? That I'd spent half my life burning their name out of the world, like it was a stain? That every headline, every lawsuit, every revoked plaque was deliberate? No. I didn't know them words. They gave me silence when I was humiliated in that ballroom. I just returned the favor. Now the Ellison name is gone. Gordon's descendants live quietly, never saying who they are. Their kids don't even know the full story. No one wears that name with pride anymore, it's a curse. And me? I still live in Kansas City. Small place. Quiet life. I built homes now, real ones. Ones people can afford. Ones with no plaques, no ribbon cuttings. No ladders to climb. Because some people don't hold the ladder. Some of us wait until the man at the top is alone. Then we kick the whole damn thing over. By spring of 2024, the Ellison name was officially toxic. Not just in real estate, in politics, education, philanthropy. His portrait was removed from the Hall of Donors at Midwestern State University. The St. Jude Children's Pavilion removed his name from the East Wing. His honorary degrees from Duluth Tech and North River College were rescinded by unanimous board vote. But none of that hit him like the family did. Stephanie's husband filed for divorce. Their tech business went under after investors panicked about Ellison exposure. Her daughter got rejected from every private school she applied to once word quietly spread. She went from glossy socialite to substitute teacher, living in a rental apartment under her mother's maiden name. Gordon's son, Brett, disappeared off social media entirely. Rumor was he moved out to Oregon and started a fishing charter business under a fake name. A man who once bragged about family estates now telling people he's from somewhere back east. And Gordon? He tried to write a memoir. Self-published, bitter, full of passive blame. He claimed shadowy enemies destroyed him. That he was too trusting. That modern business ethics left no room for legacy. Not a single paper reviewed it. Not one copy sold on record. He sent me a copy. Unmarked envelope. No note. Just a book, thick with dust and desperation. I didn't open it. But I kept it. People say revenge doesn't fix anything. They say it leaves you hollow. Maybe they're right. I spent 20 years dismantling a man's life, brick by brick. I outmaneuvered him, turned his pride into ash, and scattered what was left across courtrooms and newspaper clippings. But in doing it, I lost parts of myself too. I never remarried. I had chances, but I always pulled back. I'd built my life around this one mission, and once it was done, I didn't know what came next. Sometimes at night, I wonder what I might have built if I'd walked away. If I'd ignored that toast. Let it go. But then I remember the laughter. I remember the glass in his hand, the smirk on his face, the room full of people laughing at me like I was the help. And I know I couldn't have walked away. Because some men deserve to fall. Not because they failed, but because they climbed the backs of others to rise. Gordon didn't just climb the ladder. He kicked others off it, burned the rungs behind him, then told the world he built it himself. All I did was make sure he fell hard enough to never be remembered again. And that was enough.